there are tales of monsters born from darkness, and men who summon them. But few remember that the truest horror lies not in the creature, but in its creator. This is the story of Victor Frankenstein, and the price of playing God. Let's begin. Letters. In a series of letters to his sister, Mrs. Margaret Saville, explorer Robert Walton describes his bold expedition to the North Pole. Writing from St. Petersburg in December, he speaks of the icy winds as a promise of adventure and dreams of reaching a place of beauty where the sun never sets. His childhood fascination with exploration has grown into a lifelong pursuit, not for riches, but for glory and discovery. By March, Walton has secured a ship and crew in the Russian port of Archangel. Though he admits to feeling lonely, he longs for a friend who could share in his excitement and ease his doubts. The men under his command are brave, eager for fame, and loyal to their captain. Walton promises his sister that he will act with prudence, though his ambition burns brightly. In July, he writes again, reporting that their voyage is well underway. The crew remains fearless, and Walton's confidence is unshaken. He believes that no obstacle can stand against the determined heart and resolved will of man. Then in August, his tone changes. The ship becomes trapped in ice and thick fog. Out on the frozen waste, the sailors glimpse a figure, a gigantic man riding a sledge drawn by dogs, vanishing into the mist. The next morning, they rescue another traveler adrift on a shattered ice floe, a half-dead man named Victor Frankenstein. Weak and feverish, Frankenstein speaks of pursuing someone who fled from him. Despite his illness, there's something noble in his manner, a mix of despair and deep kindness. Walton quickly grows fond of him, calling him a brother. Yet when Walton admits his own obsession with discovery, Frankenstein grows agitated and warns him against such madness. At last, Frankenstein confides that he once had a friend and a dream that destroyed them both. He agrees to tell Walton his story, a tale from which, he says, Walton must learn a grave lesson. Part 1. The Dream of Creation. Victor Frankenstein was born in Geneva to a respected and loving family. His father, an honorable man of standing, married Caroline Beaufort, the daughter of a fallen friend. Devoted to one another, they traveled through Europe before settling in Switzerland. Their affection was boundless, and when Victor was born in Naples, he was cherished as the center of their joy. During a journey through Italy, Caroline met a poor family and was moved by a fair-haired orphan named Elizabeth Lavenza. She adopted the child, and Elizabeth grew up beside Victor as both companion and cherished cousin. He vowed always to protect her. Victor's childhood was peaceful and happy. Alongside Elizabeth and his spirited friend Henry Clerval, he spent his early years in wonder. Elizabeth's kindness calmed his temper, while Clerval's imagination stirred his curiosity. Yet even as a boy, Victor longed to uncover the secrets of heaven and earth. His fascination with old alchemists and philosophers drew him toward forbidden knowledge. A violent storm, when lightning shattered a tree before his eyes, deepened this obsession with nature's hidden powers. At 17, Victor left for the University of Ingolstadt, eager to expand his learning. Just before his departure, tragedy struck. His mother died of fever, blessing his union with Elizabeth as her final wish. Grief-stricken but determined, Victor began his studies. His professors, Kremper and Waldman, challenged his outdated ideas, yet their teachings reignited his ambition. He resolved to explore life's deepest mysteries and to master the force that animates all living things. For 2 years, Victor labored without rest. Fascinated by the line between life and death, he turned from the living world to the dissecting room and graveyard, gathering what he needed for his great experiment. He dreamed of creating a new race that would bless him as his maker. His health waned, his face grew pale, and his mind darkened. Seasons passed unnoticed, and the beauty of nature no longer touched him. In his pursuit of knowledge, Victor Frankenstein began the slow descent toward horror. Part 2. The Birth of Horror. One cold November night, Victor Frankenstein brings his creation to life. But the moment its yellow eyes open, his triumph turns to horror. The being he crafted with such devotion fills him with dread. Fleeing his laboratory, Victor spends the night wandering the streets until morning, where he unexpectedly meets his friend, Henry Clerval. Overcome with guilt and fear, Victor collapses into a fever that lasts for months, with Clerval nursing him back to health. When spring returns, so does Victor's spirit. For a time, he dares to hope that his nightmare is behind him. Elizabeth writes, longing for his return home and describing the peace of Geneva. She mentions the adopted Justine Moritz and Victor's young brothers, Ernest and William. Yet Victor cannot bring himself to tell anyone of the creature. Clerval helps him recover through long walks in nature, and for the first time in years, Victor feels joy and warmth returning to his soul. That peace is soon shattered. A letter from home brings devastating news. William has been murdered. On his journey back to Geneva, Victor grieves deeply, tormented by guilt. One stormy night, lightning flashes over the mountains, and in the distance, he sees his creation. At once, Victor knows the truth. His own hands have unleashed this murderer upon the world. He returns home to find his family consumed with sorrow. The gentle Justine Moritz has been accused of the crime, as the missing locket was found in her pocket. Victor knows she is innocent, but dares not speak, certain no one would believe the truth. At her trial, Justine remains calm and dignified, even as false evidence condemns her. Elizabeth pleads for mercy, but Justine is found guilty and executed. Victor is racked with remorse. He sees himself as the true killer, the author of both William's and Justine's deaths. His family, once so full of life, is now steeped in grief. Even Elizabeth's bright spirit has dimmed. Tormented by guilt, Victor flees to the mountains of Chamonix, seeking solace in the grandeur of nature. Among the peaks and thunderous waterfalls, he feels for a moment the power and peace of creation itself. But the weight of his sins still follows close behind. Part 3. The Monster's Story. Haunted by guilt and grief, Victor wanders deep into the mountains, hoping nature might quiet his soul. The towering peaks and thunderous waterfalls offer a fleeting sense of peace. But as the storm breaks, he sees a shape moving swiftly across the ice. It is the creature. Filled with rage, Victor curses his creation, wishing he could destroy it and undo the horrors it caused. But the being speaks, his voice sorrowful yet commanding. He reminds Victor that he gave him life, then abandoned him in misery. Once kind and full of hope, he says, suffering and rejection have made him a monster. If Victor will hear his story, he promises peace. If not, he will bring ruin to all Victor loves. Reluctantly, Victor follows him to a mountain hut to listen. Inside, the creature tells his tale. He recalls awakening to confusion, his senses dim and disordered, his mind blank as a newborn's. Alone in the wilderness, he learned to eat berries, drink from streams, and make fire, marveling at its warmth and pain. When he approached people, they screamed and fled. Stones were thrown, doors were barred. Rejected by all, he found refuge beside a small cottage, unseen through a crack in the wall. Through that narrow window, he watched a gentle family, a blind old man, his daughter Agatha, and his son Felix. Though poor and hungry, they treated one another with tenderness. Moved by their kindness, the creature began secretly chopping wood for them each night. He listened to their speech and slowly learned to understand and imitate it. From them, he discovered language, love, and sorrow. As winter passed, he came to know their names and their struggles. Their goodness filled him with admiration and envy. Seeing his reflection in a pool one morning, he was horrified by the monstrous face staring back. Yet he still dreamed that if he could speak with gentleness and gratitude, they might see past his form. With spring's return, his heart lifted with the promise of hope. The creature believed that if there was kindness in the world, surely even he could earn a place within it. As spring warms the valley, the creature watches the arrival of a new visitor. A radiant young woman named Safi, his sweet Arabian. Her voice fills the cottage with music so beautiful that it moves him to tears. As Felix teaches her language, the creature learns alongside her, listening from his hiding place and growing wiser by the day. Through their lessons, he discovers the story of humankind, nations rising and falling, the cruelty of wealth and poverty, the beauty and corruption of mankind. But the more he learns, the more miserable he becomes. He sees that he has no family, no name, no place among men, only the face of a monster. He soon learns the history of those he calls friends. They are the de Lacy family, once noble Parisians cast into exile for an act of compassion. Felix had risked his life to free Safi's father from prison, only to be betrayed and condemned. The family lost everything, retreating to this humble cottage in the woods. Safi, defying her father's will, journeyed alone across Europe to rejoin Felix, guided by love and courage. Their tale of virtue and suffering deepens the creature's admiration and his despair. One day, the creature finds a small bundle of books. In Plutarch's Lives, he learns of human greatness and cruelty. Paradise Lost pierces him most of all. He sees himself as both Adam, yearning for a creator's love, and Satan, cursed with envy and rejection. Then, in the pockets of Frankenstein's old cloak, he finds his creator's notes, cruel words describing him as odious and loathsome. For the first time, he understands what he is, a being made by man, yet denied by him. Still, hope flickers. He resolves to reveal himself to the old blind father, whose eyes cannot judge him by appearance. When the others leave one afternoon, the creature knocks softly on the door. The old man welcomes him kindly, listening as he pleads for friendship and protection. But when Felix, Agatha, and Safi return, horror fills their faces. Agatha faints, Safi flees, and Felix strikes him down. Heartbroken, the creature runs into the night, his hope destroyed, his spirit turning toward vengeance. Heartbroken by the cottager's rejection, the creature flees into the forest, crying out like a wounded beast. In his anguish, compassion turns to hatred. He vows eternal war against mankind and against the Creator who abandoned him. That night, he burns the empty cottage to the ground and sets out to find Victor Frankenstein. On his journey, even his good deeds are repaid with cruelty. After saving a young girl from drowning, he is shot by her companion. Wounded and enraged, he swears that kindness and mercy are dead within him. Reaching Geneva, he meets a child in the woods, young William Frankenstein. Hoping for friendship, He speaks gently, but the boy screams and names his father. At that moment, vengeance consumes him. He strangles the child, then plants the stolen locket on the sleeping Justine Moritz, sealing her fate. Now face to face with Victor, the creature tells his tale and demands a companion, someone as wretched as himself, who will share his exile from mankind. Victor refuses, horrified by the thought of creating another monster. But the creature pleads for mercy. If denied love, he will bring only fear. If granted it, he will vanish forever from human sight. Seeing a spark of reason and sorrow in him, Victor reluctantly agrees. Haunted by his promise, Victor returns home. His father urges him to marry Elizabeth, yet Victor cannot while this dreadful duty remains. He proposes a journey to England, claiming it is for study, though in truth it is to fulfill his grim task far from home. His friend Henry Clerval joins him, his cheerful spirit a painful contrast to Victor's despair. The two travel through the Rhine Valley and into London, where Clerval delights in art and learning while Victor isolates himself, sickened by the purpose that awaits him. Letters from home bring little comfort, for the shadow of the creature looms over every thought. When a friend invites them north, Victor seizes the chance and journeys alone into the wild Scottish Isles. There, amid crashing waves and bitter wind, he finds a lonely rock in the Orkneys, a desolate place fit for horror. In a wretched hut, he begins his dreadful work once more. Each stroke of his hand fills him with revulsion. Surrounded by grey seas and endless solitude, Victor Frankenstein stands again on the brink of creation and of ruin. In the lonely hut on the Orkneys, Victor Frankenstein hesitates. As he works, a terrible thought grips him. What if this new creature is even more cruel than the first? What if together they breed a race of monsters that could end mankind? Horrified by his own imagination, he looks up and sees the creature watching through the window. In that instant, Victor destroys his unfinished creation. A howl of rage echoes across the sea. The creature bursts into the hut, furious at the broken promise. "You are my creator," he cries, "but I am your master. Remember that." Before vanishing into the night, he swears vengeance. He will be with Victor on his wedding night. Victor throws the remains into the ocean, but when his boat drifts ashore in Ireland, he is seized and accused of murder. To his horror, the victim is Henry Clerval, his dearest friend. Racked with guilt and fever, Victor languishes in prison until his father arrives to free him. But even release brings no peace. He feels life itself has become poisoned. Back in Geneva, Victor tries to forget his misery through work and family. His father urges him to marry Elizabeth, but the creature's threat still haunts him. Victor agrees to the wedding, determined to face his fate. Elizabeth senses his dread, yet remains hopeful. On their wedding day, the lake is calm, the mountains gleam, and for one brief moment, happiness returns. That night, as a storm rages outside, Victor hears Elizabeth scream. He rushes to the room and finds her lifeless, strangled like all the others. In the window stands the creature, grinning in triumph before fleeing into the night. Soon after, Victor's father dies of grief, and Victor is left utterly alone. Consumed by a vengeance, he swears to hunt the creature to the ends of the earth. Across mountains, forests, and frozen seas, the chase continues. When the ice splits beneath them, Victor is left stranded, until a ship's crew, led by Robert Walton, rescues him. On board, weak and dying, he tells his tale and warns Walton to avoid ambition, the same ambition that destroyed them both. After Victor's death, Walton discovers the creature weeping over his creator's body. The being mourns the ruin he has wrought, calling himself more miserable than man. He vows to end his suffering at the world's edge, to burn himself upon a pyre, and to let the wind scatter his ashes. Then, stepping into the Arctic darkness, the creature disappears forever into the cold and silent sea. This is the end of the tale of Frankenstein. In the frozen silence of the North, creator and creation were lost to time. Yet their story endures, a warning whispered through every age. Some fires, once lit, can never be controlled. Thank you for listening. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and to comment which tale you'd like to hear next.